At the time of production, the Panasonic HC-X2000 was the world's smallest and lightest 4K 60p video camera. Now, despite lacking some serious YouTube call and only having an image sensor the size of an iPhone, I wanted to take a closer look at this palm-sized, top-handled video camera to see if it outperforms that small censored reputation. Standing at just 257mm in length and weighing only 1.5 kilograms, it certainly lives up to the marketing blurb of being the smallest and lightest in its class. At the front of the body, it's sporting the Leica Dicomar 24x zoom lens, going from a full frame equivalent of 25mm to 600mm at the zoom end. This impressive Leica lens also features a very fast variable aperture of f1.8 when wide open. In of itself, this is impressive as it's rare to see a zoom with such a fast wide open aperture, but I'll touch more on this feature later. The detachable top handle with its dual XLR inputs, hot shoe, mic clip, integrated LED light are obviously all welcome features for any video dedicated camera, as is the host of intuitive controls, ND filters, articulating touchscreens, and the dual SD card slots. These dual SD card slots are a really key feature. Right, future AJ here. Yes, that wandering focus thing is an issue, and no, we didn't notice it before. In all our test shooting when we were out and about, it wasn't a problem. As soon as we got it in the studio though, it seems to drift, and we didn't catch it until I got into the edit. So it's definitely a problem with this camera, something to do with the autofocus, Panasonic's dreaded DFD system, but it's an issue, had to bring it up, but hey, you get two of me in one video. Anyway, back to the edit. Having access to two recording medias is really important for simultaneous or relay record modes. Being a video dedicated camera, the list of compression, codec and frame rate options are plentiful, spanning an impressive 422 10-bit in 4K to a more streamlined 420 8-bit in 1080p. 4K 60 is also available in 10-bit 420, and that is if you're willing to make use of the H.265 compression. But enough of these specs, let's get off the paper and to using this camera and to see the good bits of the Panasonic HC-X2000. Everything about this camera is built for ease of use on the go. The baked-in features such as the built-in ND filters, the top handle, the 5-axis hybrid image stabilization, the focus and iris rings all feed into that idea that this camera is built for filming on the go, perhaps in a documentary or maybe even a vlogging style. Now let's address the elephant in the room, that sensor and the image it can render for you. Yes, it is only a 1/2.5 inch in size, and that is tiny. In fact, it's probably the same size sensor as the one in your smartphone's camera. This is obviously going to affect the camera's low light performance, and to be sure, that really isn't that great. However, there are some interesting advantages to having this sized image sensor. The smaller amount of light captured allows for this camcorder to have a wider maximum aperture to its lens. f1.8 isn't just a rarity for variable zoom lenses, but it's also just an unusual pairing for video cameras in general. As controlling the amount of light entering the sensor, especially in daylight conditions, is less of a consideration, you are now afforded the added creative options of having that faster aperture. The Venus image processor attached to the sensor also does some truly magical things with an image from a sensor no bigger than your iPhone. I've been genuinely impressed with the image quality the HC-X2000 renders. For sure, it isn't as beautiful or as versatile as some of the high-end hybrids we've been looking at recently, but I'd argue that this isn't the place for this camera. However, having access to a 10-bit 422 4K file does give a huge amount of post-production versatility not normally associated with cameras of this niche. Our experience of using Panasonic cameras over the years for documentary, interview or even corporate work tells us that this camera is going to be perfect for these environments. It's built for ease of use. It thrives in those environments and features such as that 5-axis hybrid image stabilization and its reassuringly snappy autofocus all feed into that notion of a reassuringly easy camera to use. So on to the bad points, and like every single camera, there is always compromises to have, and the first key one with this camera is that low light performance. That tiny sensor is really going to struggle in darkened conditions, and the amount of gain you need to add to your image to make it usable in the dark will make your image very, very noisy. And then on to the price point, which is an interesting place, sitting at around £1,800, and it means that this camera finds itself in a very competitive and crowded price point. For example, for the same amount of money, you could pick up a Fuji X-T4, which for outright quality is just a superior camera. However, the dedicated video features present on the HC-X2000, such as the ND filters, the image stabilization, that ridiculous zoom lens, the XLR preamps, and the quirky LED light all hint at that not being a fair comparison. This is a video-only camera, a camcorder built for 2020, and for that, this camera occupies a kind of unique position in the market. Now, there's a special place in my heart for camcorders and cameras that are dedicated to video in general, but of course I am a sucker for large sensors and the creative options you get with hybrid stills and mirrorless cameras. But there is a unique experience to be had with shooting video on a dedicated video camera with a top handle or a side mounted handle, and in 2020 there are very few cameras that offer this experience. In the sub £2,000 price point, there is even more limited options, especially when we consider all the bells and whistles that we get with the HC-X2000. The 4K 60 422 10-bit recording for under £2,000 in a video camera is almost impossible to find, and for that, I absolutely love this little camcorder. For some more information on the HC-X2000, there is of course some links below, and whilst you're down there, why not consider subscribing to our channel? That's been my grab and go review of the Panasonic HC-X2000. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.